Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I met Claire on a sunlit Saturday at a neighborhood book swap, where someone had mislabeled a box of travel guides as poetry. She laughed at the mix-up, traded me a dog-eared atlas for a slim collection of sonnets, and left with my number scribbled in blue ink along the bottom margin of a map of Sicily. Our early days ran on long walks, city buses, tea shops, and the cheerful belief that good intentions could solve nearly anything. She teased me for alphabetizing spices. I teased her for never finishing a show before starting another. We built a rhythm that felt solid and light at once, like a bridge made from braided rope. After a year, I proposed under a line of paper lanterns at a street fair, and she said yes with both hands at her cheeks, eyes bright, face wet with happy tears. I believed that moment would sit in my pocket forever. Engagement turned out to be an apprenticeship in logistics. Guest lists, deposits, invitations, and careful compromises. I handled the finances. She wanted to handle the aesthetics. I didn't mind. She picked out a ring that glimmered without shouting. We split the cost of a sensible hatchback that she mostly drove, though the loan and the insurance lived under my name for the discount. I shared passwords to our streaming services and a cloud drive with venue contracts, seating charts, and a folder of ridiculous dog photos we sent each other whenever the world felt loud. It felt like a partnership, imperfect, energetic, hopeful. Then September arrived with heat that lingered like an overstaying relative. Claire started late nights at work. Inventory, she said. She worked at a boutique shop where every ceramic mug had a quirky thumbprint dent and every sweater had a story about a cooperative in the hills somewhere. The owners loved her charm and put her in charge of a new launch. It made sense that she'd be busy. I cooked pasta, watered the basil, and left a plate for her on the stove with a sticky note. Eat me, not the ice cream. She'd send a heart emoji at 11:52 p.m., followed by a photo of stacked boxes. I slept with my phone face down so the blue light wouldn't buzz my eyelids. One Friday I got a message from an unfamiliar number asking if I was Claire's fiancé. I replied yes, because that's what I was. The response came with a shockingly friendly tone. "Hey man, I'm Anthony, we should talk." I didn't. Random numbers with confident openings rarely bring anything generous. I silenced the thread and set my phone in a drawer, decided not to borrow trouble. That night Claire came home smelling like jasmine and printer ink, humming something upbeat. She curled against me on the couch and fell asleep halfway through a documentary about refurbished barns. I took it as proof that everything was okay. 2 days later, she announced brunch with coworkers. She wore a simple dress I'd always admired, green with tiny white arrows, and let me zip it up. She kissed my cheek near the ear and asked if I could email the caterer about vegetarian options. I said of course. The door clicked shut behind her like punctuation at the end of a sentence I didn't yet understand. Hours passed. I cleaned. I answered 2 work emails. I fixed the wobbly leg on our coffee table and felt virtuous. When my phone buzzed again, it was the same number. "Don't ignore me. She isn't who you think." I typed, "Lose this number," then deleted it before sending. I decided on no response instead. I went for a run through the park and came back sweaty, lungs buzzing, legs humming. The apartment looked exactly the way I'd left it. Calm. Innocent. Evening found Claire standing just inside our doorway with a look that wasn't calm or innocent. Her shoulders set, eyes bright in a way that made me wary. She closed the door softly, like she didn't want to wake anyone, though we lived alone. I felt a tiny hitch in my ribs. "I'm moving in with Anthony," she said. "We're having a baby together." The words didn't crash or ring. They landed, like a stack of papers slid across a desk. My brain reached for familiar handles and found none. Claire braced, as if she expected plates to fly. I looked at the woman I'd asked to share my forever, and I saw a person I didn't know well enough to predict. I surprised myself by not raising my voice. I felt the floor tilt, but I stayed upright. I thought of that message, of late nights, of the ring, of shared passwords, of the car insurance in my name. I thought about how my mother used to say that grace wasn't weakness, it was control under pressure. I inhaled once, steady and slow, and heard my own voice like it belonged to a practiced version of me. "Congratulations," I said. One word slid into the next, as if it had been waiting. Her jaw moved, then stopped. She had prepared for fury, not for manners. I could see calculations flutter behind her eyes like a bird startled behind a curtain. I didn't ask for details. I didn't ask dates, I didn't ask timelines, I didn't ask why someone named Anthony had my number. I didn't want explanations crafted on the spot. I wanted distance from the scene. So I nodded once and walked to my desk. I opened the browser and signed into the jeweler's account. The engagement ring came with insurance, a return provision for change of circumstances, and an option to suspend future payments while a claim was reviewed. I clicked the appropriate sequence with hands that didn't shake. Then I called the dealership and, after the automated labyrinth, reached a human. "Joint vehicle, primary in my name," I said. "Title transfer back to the dealer. We'll make other arrangements." The agent spoke in careful phrases as if she was guiding me around a sleeping animal. Paperwork would follow. I thanked her and hung up. I moved through the rest like a checklist. Streamers, cloud drive, shared grocery app, photo backups. Passwords changed, access revoked. Not vengefully, not gleefully. Just calmly, like closing windows before a storm. I placed her car keys on the counter next to a small stack of envelopes and a note that said, in tidy letters, "For your records." I didn't add anything else. I didn't trust the part of myself that wanted to write a paragraph about trust and what it feels like when a promise gets folded into a paper airplane and thrown out a window. Claire watched from the doorway of the kitchen with a face I couldn't read. I could tell she was waiting for me to stumble or to beg, to perform some familiar act in the story she thought we were living. I didn't. When I finished the last password update, I set my phone on the table, looked at her and said, "I'll give you space to pack what's yours. If you need boxes, I have some in the closet." Polite as a hotel clerk. "I didn't think you'd be cruel," she said finally. "I didn't think you'd be careless," I said. Neither of us shouted. The sentences floated between us like leaves. She stayed for 10 minutes, maybe 15. She filled a tote bag with a few essentials while I watered the basil, then folded 2 sweaters with remarkable neatness, and left without slamming the door. The quiet she left behind had weight. I stood inside it and let the house reacquaint itself with me. Shock comes in peculiar shapes. Mine looked like clarity. I took a shower, put on clean clothes, and brewed coffee I didn't intend to drink. I wrote a short message to the caterer about vegetarian options, because, petty or not, I wanted my life to continue its errands. Then I sat down with a legal pad and made a list labeled Next. It had items like call landlord, call bank, separate accounts, notify families, and cancel venue. The list didn't hiss or weep, it simply waited to be crossed off. At some point my stomach remembered hunger. I ate toast with jam that tasted too sweet and not sweet enough. I turned on the ceiling fan. The basil lifted and settled like it was breathing. Outside, the city moved with its usual enthusiasm. In our courtyard, a kid threw a tennis ball against a wall and caught it with perfect rhythm. My phone buzzed with a message from an unsaved number. I didn't open it. The day had given me enough confession. Instead, I stacked plates, washed 2, left the third in the rack, in case a future version of me liked the look of imperfect symmetry. I sat at the table and let the clock's hands sweep. Time sounded different now, but it still moved. 6 hours later, someone knocked. Not a confident knock. Not the knock of a courier or a friend with pizza. This was a careful tapping, the kind that asks permission without thinking it deserves it. I opened the door. Claire stood there, hair pulled into a hurried bun, mascara smudged like a shadow, cheeks damp. She was holding the same tote bag from earlier, except now it gaped open and a sweater sleeve dangled from the edge like a small white flag. She looked smaller, not physically but in spirit, as if the day had pulled thread after thread from a sweater I recognized and left her wearing something flimsy and unfamiliar. "Anthony kicked me out," she said, voice hiccuping around the words. "I thought—" She swallowed. "Can we talk?" The hallway light hummed softly. A neighbor's dog collar rang as it shook somewhere down the corridor. In that tiny pause, I remembered our book swap, our street fair, the ring under paper lanterns, and the word "congratulations" rolling off my tongue like a marble I'd let drop rather than keep. I remembered the list on my table and the basil by the window, and the fact that dignity, once given away, takes a long walk to return. I stepped back a little so the door wouldn't look like a wall and not quite enough to look like a welcome. I spoke slowly because speed invites chaos. I chose each word like I was setting down glass. "Claire," I said, "you can come inside to sit for a moment. You can drink water. We can talk like adults with calm voices. But nothing about today has been simple, and nothing can be solved with a single conversation at my door." She nodded, quick, grateful, devastated. I could see the urge to cling, to rewind, to rename the day. I held very still, the way one does when a bird perches nearby and you don't want to frighten it or trap it. She stepped in. The door closed on the hallway's hum, and the apartment gathered us like a stage sets its actors. She stared at the table where the envelopes sat, and at the basil that kept lifting like a tiny audience member trying to see. She pressed her palms to her cheeks and sat in the chair across from mine. Her tote bag slumped against the leg like it needed a nap. I filled a glass with water and set it in front of her. She wrapped both hands around it as if heat could rise from cold. Silence lingered, not hostile but not gentle. I waited. She took a breath that shivered a little. "I made a mistake," she said, barely above a whisper. "I made several. I don't even know how to explain them without sounding like someone else entirely." I didn't rush to rescue her with a script. I let the room hold the words until they stopped vibrating. I looked at the ring box on the shelf where I'd placed it moments earlier, now closed like a book I had decided not to read again tonight. I thought of the kindness I wanted to have and the boundaries I needed to keep. "Start at the beginning," I said. "Tell the truth." She nodded, swallowed again, and looked at the water like it might offer a better story. The night stretched its careful fabric across our small table. Somewhere outside, the kid in the courtyard caught the tennis ball again, the sound carrying through the open window in steady, patient beats, a metronome for whatever would come next. Claire sat across from me, clutching the water glass like it was the last piece of solid ground she could stand on. Her eyes darted from the basil by the window to the envelopes on the table, then back to me as if looking for an anchor. "I thought Anthony was serious," she said finally, her voice brittle. "But as soon as I told him I'd left you, he panicked. He said he wasn't ready. He said he didn't want to play house with someone else's fiancée." She gave a short, shaky laugh that wasn't laughter at all. "Then he told me to pack up and go. 6 hours. That's how long it lasted." I didn't move. My hands rested on the table, calm, deliberate, though inside, I felt every part of me weighing what this meant. 6 hours. She had gambled our entire life together on a man who couldn't last half a day when reality set in. "You should have thought of that before you threw us away," I said evenly. She flinched, but she didn't look away. "I know. I made a mistake. A huge one. But I don't want to lose you. Please, can we fix this?" Her words fell into the air like broken glass, sharp but fragile. I let the silence stretch. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. I heard faint music from a neighbor's apartment. Everything sounded clearer than usual, as though my mind had sharpened in the aftermath of betrayal. "Claire," I said at last, "when you told me you were leaving, I believed you. I didn't fight. I didn't beg. Because if you could choose Anthony over me, over us, then I had to let you go." Her face crumpled. "But I regret it. I swear I regret it." "Regret isn't the same as love," I replied. She opened her mouth, closed it, then pressed her palms together as if in prayer. "I don't want Anthony. I want us. I want what we had." And there it was, the plea I had expected, the sudden nostalgia for something she'd thrown away so casually just hours before. I studied her. The same woman who once cried with joy under paper lanterns now sat begging at my table, hoping words could mend something shattered. "I already returned the ring," I said. "The car, the accounts, everything is separate now. That wasn't an accident. That was me closing the chapter you ended." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She reached out across the table, fingertips trembling. "Please, we can start over. We can get another ring. I'll prove myself to you." I pulled my hands back and stood. The chair legs scraped softly on the floor. I walked to the window, watched the kid in the courtyard toss the tennis ball again, caught it, tossed it, caught it. Uncomplicated, steady, dependable. I envied that rhythm. "Claire," I said quietly, I don't hate you, but trust doesn't grow back just because you water it with tears. You made your choice. I made mine." Her sobs filled the room. Not loud, but heavy. She buried her face in her hands, shaking, while I stayed by the window. I let her cry because I knew those tears weren't about love. They were about consequences. About realizing that when she walked out that door with Anthony, she walked out of my future too. Minutes passed before she finally lifted her head. "So that's it? After everything we had?" "That's it," I said. My voice didn't shake. She stood slowly, as if her body weighed more than it should. She grabbed her tote bag, pulled the sweater sleeve back inside, and slung it over her shoulder. For a second, she lingered at the door, eyes searching mine one last time for softness, for weakness. I gave her none. When the door closed behind her, the silence returned, deeper this time, but lighter too. I sat at the table, drew a line through the top item on my next list, separate accounts, and realized something surprising. I wasn't broken. I wasn't destroyed. I was free. The basil swayed gently under the fan. The clock ticked on. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like my life was truly mine again. The night after Claire left for the second time, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was tortured by what-ifs or drowning in regret, but because my mind was alive with a strange mix of calm and possibility. It felt like I'd been carrying invisible weight for months, and only now realized how much lighter I could be without it. I sat at my kitchen table long past midnight, staring at the neat list I'd made earlier. Next, it said at the top, and beneath it, lines of tasks waiting to be crossed off. They weren't just chores anymore. They were proof that my life had boundaries, and that I had the strength to protect them. I didn't need to argue with Claire or with Anthony. My choices had already spoken. The following morning, I called the bank and split our accounts. The representative asked if it was a separation or a wedding postponement. I simply said, "Separation," and let the word stand. It sounded solid, like a door closing firmly in its frame. I called my landlord next and had Claire's name removed from the lease. Each step was practical, unglamorous, but every phone call felt like laying another brick in the foundation of a new life. Family conversations were harder. My mother's voice broke when I told her. She had adored Claire, saw her as the daughter she never had. "But sweetheart," she whispered, "you two were planning forever." "Forever ended when she walked out," I said gently. "I can't build forever with someone who's willing to trade it away for 6 hours." There was silence on the other end, then a soft sigh. "I raised you to be steady," she said. "I didn't know I was also raising you to be this strong." Her words mattered more than I admitted at the time. Strength felt lonely, but it also felt right. In the days that followed, Claire tried again. Texts, voicemails, even a letter slid under my door, each one painted in apologies and promises. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because I finally understood that not all stories deserve sequels. Some belong closed, left on the shelf to gather dust. Instead of answering her, I started answering myself. I signed up for a weekend hiking group that met at a trailhead on Saturday mornings. I rejoined a language class I'd abandoned months ago when wedding planning had swallowed my schedule. I took my mother out for dinner, something I hadn't done in too long, and we laughed over shared plates like nothing in the world could touch us. The apartment changed too. Without Claire's clutter, it became a reflection of me again. I moved the basil plant to the center of the windowsill, bought a second pot, and started growing mint beside it. The rhythm of watering them in the morning, watching them stretch toward the light, gave me a sense of continuity I hadn't known I craved. One evening, I walked past the boutique where Claire had worked. Through the glass, I saw a new display of handmade scarves, but not her. Someone else arranged the mannequins. I felt no sting, no bitterness, just distance. She belonged to a part of my life that no longer claimed me. Anthony never reached out. I suspect he knew better, or maybe he was too busy finding someone else to flatter. Either way, he was just a name now, a character in a chapter already closed. The thought of him no longer made my stomach twist. It simply reminded me that people reveal themselves in time, and when they do, you get to choose whether to keep them in your story. Weeks passed, then months. Seasons shifted, and with them, so did I. I learned to enjoy my own company again. I cooked new recipes, burned a few, perfected others. I started running regularly, not to escape my thoughts, but to feel the rhythm of my heartbeat steady and sure. I smiled more. I laughed without the echo of suspicion. One day, while waiting in line at the coffee shop, I struck up a conversation with a stranger about the book I was holding. Her name was Lena. She had a warm laugh, curious eyes, and a way of making silence feel comfortable instead of awkward. We exchanged numbers, and this time I didn't scribble it on the margin of a map. I typed it into my phone, deliberate and unhurried. We didn't rush. I wasn't looking to replace Claire, and Lena wasn't looking to be anyone's substitute. We just talked. About books, about travels, about the little quirks of everyday life. It felt simple. It felt honest. Looking back, I realized that Claire's betrayal had been brutal, but it had also been clarifying. She showed me the value of loyalty by shattering it. She showed me the fragility of promises by breaking them. And in her absence, I rediscovered myself. The version of me who could stand tall, who could say congratulations instead of collapsing, who could walk away with dignity instead of clinging to someone unworthy. The revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't in anger or retaliation. It was in living well, in not letting her mistake define me, in moving forward without carrying her shadow. Sometimes when I see the basil thriving on my windowsill, I think about how close I came to letting someone else's choices uproot me. But I didn't let it happen. I grew anyway. And that, I realized, was the best kind of revenge, not to hurt back, but to heal better. And that was how I closed that chapter of my life. Not with bitterness, not with anger, but with clarity. Claire made her choice, and I made mine. I chose peace, I chose growth, and I chose to rebuild. The real victory wasn't in revenge. It was in showing myself that I didn't need someone who didn't value me. Life has a way of testing us in the harshest ways, but it also gives us the chance to come out stronger, wiser, and ready for better things. I'm living proof of that. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more storytelling, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one. And I'd love to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have taken Claire back or walked away like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading them.